The Speedway donut system is a system that I cannot figure out. And I don't know if I'm going to lose sleep over it tonight. I certainly hope I don't, but I might. My
All
local
right, let's
Speedway.
let's
Huh.
go ahead and unpack it here.
All right, let's do that. My local Speedway has Krispy Kreme donuts, a display, maybe five, six flavors. I always go for my usual donut order at Speedway of one chocolate sprinkled donut and one strawberry sprinkled donut, and that might be controversial, but I stand by it. Now, here is where the confusion sets in. You would think they'd have these donuts ready pretty early in the morning. Well, I got there at about 5:15 a.m. today, and we will talk about our morning later on in the show. This is more important right now. The donuts had not been restocked yet. And when they are restocked by the time I would get to the Speedway on my way to school, which would be around 8:20, maybe even a little bit later. And I just remembered that I went to the Speedway before my graduation practice, which would put me there at around 6:15 in the morning. And they weren't restocked then either. So when does the Speedway donut system replenish the inventory of such wonderful donuts?
Sounds
Somewhere
like
between 6:20 and 8 a.m., which is weird to me. That doesn't feel early enough. Not to say that it's not early enough for me, because I very rarely get up that early, but some people do. Some people have places to be, and if they want their donuts, and the donuts that I had were fine, but I know that not that many people are going to Speedway for donuts, that there was only like one left of each. So why would you not restock them earlier? The Speedway donut system is a system that I do not yet understand. And maybe I
wow.
never will.
That was a beautiful, beautiful speech, Aaron. But I think this is the time where we go ahead and welcome everyone to the East 15th podcast, or the E15, if you wanna get a little nickname
Mr.
in there.
Worldwide,
Yeah, Mr. Worldwide, welcome to E15.
E15. Yeah.
Yeah, but that is odd though. I know, like, I worked at Dunkin', which I will never do that or really go near Dunkin' again, because once you work there, like, it's already, like, bad food. Like, obviously it's bad for you. It's donuts and coffee, like, and just other garbage. Like, it's not already gonna be good for you. But then on top of that, when you watch how it's made and you're the one mopping the floors and all that, like,
Not to be
yeah,
confused with the Science Channel TV show, How It's Made, which is a
yeah,
good show, to be
it
sure,
is a good
but
show.
that is not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but it's just no, it's I'm good. I don't ever need to go into Dunkin' anymore. And it's also I didn't realize because everyone in that establishment stole from Dunkin' Donuts, like,
Oh yeah, I have a friend who
which I
works
mean,
in Dunkin' right now, and he's given me many
yeah,
free donuts that he's not supposed to.
of course. Which I mean, but like, yeah, everyone does it at every Dunkin', and really every food job. People do it at least once in
Oh yeah,
their time there. But essentially, the point is that yeah, I when I actually went there, we had an acapella event, and they went to Dunkin', and I got something, and I actually had to pay for it, and it was like $10 for like 2 items. It was like a drink and food, and it was $10. And I was like, "Wow." Like, I'm used to stealing. I'm used to paying $0, not even ringing it up. So it was just like the fact that it was not a lot of food at all for $10, and I was just like, "Damn." Like, we went
and the
to
fact
Baba
that
Vin's this morning for
we
like
did,
11 each, and we
yeah,
got a whole meal
our
and a
bill
drink.
was $24 for both of us
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
a
and we
tip,
see
but
yeah, and we split that. Like,
yeah,
it's just that's insane. But,
and I'm
yeah, I
surprised
mean,
that I just don't get why Dunkin' wouldn't give their employees free donuts, even if it's just one per day or two per day. Like,
I don't even know what the policy is because if there is one, no one follows it.
well,
So
that's true.
there could be some sort of thing. I mean, usually managers get free food, but I don't know. I wasn't anywhere near a manager, nor would I want to be.
No,
Um,
no.
but yeah, it's just yeah. But we can unpack our morning, as I said,
Yes.
as you said rather.
Yeah, so today is the morning of June 9th, 2024. Last week's episode was recorded just 2 days ago now on June 7th. So, we're keeping pretty well ahead. So, this is old news for us by the time this reaches your ears. But,
On June
um,
28th.
yeah, we were talking about this on last week's episode. We were talking about potentially waking up for the sunrise, going to a local spot, Huntington Beach, and that is exactly what we did. So, for the listeners that may not know me, my name's Aaron, and I enjoy long walks on the beach. But also, I'm not a morning person, and I'm also taken. So please don't try to. Anyway, uh, I'm not a
Wow.
morning person. So getting up to watch the sunrise is something that I have virtually rendered impossible because I do not like waking up to alarms. Well, I figured let's do it today. So I clocked out of work at 12:01 a.m. and I got home at 12:05, 12:04 because it's very close, right up the street. And went to bed, probably got 4 hours of sleep. And there was my 5 a.m. alarm, and we got up and we went. I discovered the Speedway donut system and its curious flaws. And well, we went to the beach and we saw the sunrise, and I think we can agree that it was pretty underwhelming. Not to say
Yeah,
that it wasn't worth it. I think it was a good time, but the sunrise itself, and maybe the real sunrise was the friends we made along the way, but
of
the
course.
the sun, quote unquote, rising over the horizon itself was blocked by a good amount of cloud coverage. It was pretty windy. It was a little bit chilly because of that wind, and not much to see until we were getting ready to leave, basically. So,
Yeah,
um,
and I mean, I kind of also set you up for higher expectations when I was sending you photos of a sunrise from a while ago.
that is
Um,
true.
that was an absolutely perfect sunrise. I mean, that sunrise was completely clear, like total like painting type sunrise where there's not a single
Absolutely,
cloud in the sky,
I
if a
would hang that
couple
on the wall.
maybe. Yeah, like and that's honestly I've seen that a lot at Huntington Beach. But I don't know, which on the last podcast you would have heard that I was talking about looking at the forecast. Unless maybe that was after our recording session. I don't know.
I don't
Um,
remember.
I don't remember either. But point is that I looked at the forecast and I was like, yeah, it's pretty cloudy all throughout the night, and then it gets sunny, which it is actually sunny and not very cloudy now. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I
that
mean
hit while we were playing pickleball. Of
yeah,
course, the
yeah,
sun came out.
the clouds were plenty
Uh,
there, and it was this
Yeah,
like very steep layer. The lower levels were a lot more dense, and then it got high, but they were like I don't know. The clouds were very low, but very tall and very dense. So any sunlight, and you could see the sun reflecting in it because it still is a sun, so it is still incredibly bright. But I mean, yeah, it was quite the underwhelming look because again, I set you up for pretty high expectations, and then we were met with cloud stuff. I still like just being up early. I mean, dude, we've done so much, and it's only 10:30 a.m. and you
that
don't
is
have
true,
anything.
and I would
Yeah,
still be asleep right now.
yeah, typically, and you don't
And
really have anything to do until 5 p.m. So
right, I did say this off the recording. I believe it might have been on the recording, but I'll say it again. I wholeheartedly agree that waking up early is a good thing, and when I do it, I feel very accomplished
yeah,
because you're right. You can get so much done with so much day left to go. There was a day in the winter, I believe, where I set an alarm, and that alarm went off as I was leaving the gym. I'd walked an hour on a treadmill and burned, well, the treadmill said 1,000 calories. Now, I don't really trust those
oh,
treadmills.
holy, yeah.
But I mean,
I
it
mean,
was it was a good
It is an hour, but
it
that's
was I was going 3 miles an hour on, I believe, an 11% grade, 10, 11%. So definitely, for me, that's pretty
yeah.
intensive, especially back then, and um, definitely felt like I burned a lot of calories. So I did feel accomplished. The point is, I'm not saying that I disagree with the notion of getting up early in the morning. I just can't do it every day. But I did today. And yeah, like you said, I don't have anywhere to be until 5 and might have to get a nap in before I go to work, but I still get to say I got a lot done. And, I only got about a third of the way through our events of the day as I sip my water. Uh so after we gave up on the beach, we went to that lovely outdoor shopping mall that we told about and for some reason we won't say the name of. Um we just kind of walked around. It's usually bustling with all sorts of people, and we saw maybe three or four. Um, oh, that was another thing I was going to say just about the morning in general. I woke up, I walked out of my house, I just heard a bunch of birds, and I thought something along the lines of because it's 5 in the morning and I'm not used to that. But it felt very peaceful. It was very interesting. You don't hear as many birds, it seems, later in the day, and it just sounded peaceful. And I didn't listen to music on the drive to the beach. I just kind of listened to the birds and the open road. That's another thing I like is that the road just never has anybody on it. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So we went to that outdoor shopping mall and just kind of walked around. We got to walk in the roundabouts that are usually impossible to drive through.
Yeah, we were
Uh,
actually like literally walking on the street, but Aaron
yeah,
doesn't know how to stop a stop sign
yeah.
apparently, because every time
I
we reached the stop sign, he was just walking right through it.
I
I don't
walked
know
right through the
what
stop
country you
signs.
think we're in, but we follow laws here, Aaron. You gotta
Well,
stop at the
I
stop
guess
sign.
I'm a fugitive of the United States then.
Mhm.
I did have a run-in with the police today, so I guess that's what I get.
You kind of are, yeah.
So,
I'll I'll give context on this one. I'll take the reins here. Yeah, so
okay, go ahead.
we did all of that. We went to the outdoor shopping mall. Literally walk as we could, and it was, 6 a.m. No one was there. And actually, in about 30 minutes, they're about to have a block party on a Sunday, which is such a weird thing. Like,
Oh, I almost forgot about that. We
yeah,
should
when
have
you think of block,
recorded,
yeah.
like, at the block party. I was actually thinking
It was,
about I forgot to mention this. I was actually thinking about, like, pulling up my voice memos app and recording a bit for this show at the beach,
hmm.
but it ended up being too cold, too loud, you know, too
Yeah,
early for me.
the wind would ruin the audio. If I brought like
Yes.
my Sony vlog camera, that thing has the windscreen, the little like coupe on the microphone. So that actually does really well in the wind. Because when I did my little like sunrise video, my first video on my YouTube channel, I actually brought the mic and I was worried about that. Well, not brought the mic, I brought the camera and it actually was fine. Like literally the audio was crisp as could be. And literally it was just as windy it was today. So I was very
Well,
impressed with the little windscreen. I was like, damn.
duly
Like,
noted.
oh
We'll keep that in
yeah.
mind.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take that. But and yeah, and the audio's pretty snazzy on that, so it wouldn't be that bad quality in comparison to like an iPhone. But yeah, so we did all that. We went to the park. And then, as you know, pickleball is on the rise in the United States and has been since COVID pretty much. Probably your grandma or grandpa plays it, along with your own
We
friends. But
probably saw your grandma and grandpa today.
yeah, probably,
Lots of them.
bright and early at like 8 a.m.
I know,
Because
I'd never
that's
seen it that busy, honest to God.
yeah. Well, dude, the nighttime it gets even more busy. That's when like all those little separate courts, the ones that are like makeshift because
Yeah, the
they're on
backups.
tennis courts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all full as well at nighttime. Like literally almost every single court is taken up most of
Huh.
the time. Like it's popping. Nighttime pickleball is big around
Yeah.
here.
Duly
And
noted. We'll
yeah.
have to try to go sometime.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's just we go play pickleball. And I pull up. Of course, I'm blasting Hamilton because, as I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm reading the Hamilton biography. Um, So mainly because I've been in a big like Hamilton theater music phase, as everyone has pretty much been in at one point in their life. And I decided to pick up the book, and it's been very interesting. But that's not really the point. The point is that I was blasting Hamilton, and then I was pretty much distracting Aaron because I made you like
Well,
roll down your window.
it was a combination of that and the fact that I was, like, so surprised by how busy it was. I was trying to
Yeah,
get out of the car and be like, "Wow, it's busy,"
yeah, you
and
were
see
looking
if we
around
could,
and all
like,
that.
snatch a cord, like, the last one left,
Yeah.
outside of the makeshift ones, which we ended up on, but, yeah. So, point is, I will let you continue since you seem to be very
Okay.
excited
Okay.
about this, but yes, I was distracted, and
Yeah.
that led
Aaron
me
was
to
led him to getting out of the car, making sure his windows are nice and closed so he couldn't help himself out. And then he, of course, why would you turn the car off? And
Oh,
why
wow,
wouldn't you lock it up?
that's so
Because,
overrated.
yeah, you got to keep the car running for you and, lock it up so it's secure. So Aaron decides to get out of the car, lock the doors, close all the windows, and not take his keys with him because why would he? Um, and then I get out and I was a little confused because I thought for a second that my car was running. Then I literally had my keys in my hand. And then I asked Iron, like, why is your car running? Um, and yeah, that's when we realized what had happened. But
And
I'll
for
let you
reference,
finish.
and now
Did
it
you
just
talk about?
occurred to me that even if I had so I my current car, which will be changing soon, but I'll get into that later, is a 2016 Chevrolet Spark. And this is a great car. I love this car. It's very good on gas. It's served me well for and my family for 8 years. It's only got about 67,000 miles on it, and we're gonna drive it till the wheels fall off. It is not, perfect, and it is not, you know, it's not very fancy. It still has crank windows, and the key does not have power locks. So it is literally a lock and key car. Now, it just occurred to me, even if it did have power locks, I could probably very easily get myself into the same situation. Um, but it gets especially tricky when there literally are no, backup options, to prevent this from happening. So, yeah, I left my car running and locked all the doors because, again, when you get out of the car, you have to lock the door by pushing the lock down. So I do that just muscle memory at this point because I've been doing that for 8 years since I was, 10 years old, and didn't even think anything of it because, sometimes I forget to do the automatic things. Like there are many times where I forget to put my car in park. I notice it as I turn the car off because then the car acts really weird, but whatever. And sometimes I leave the keys inside the running car. So that's what happened. Um, and Chase advised me that the best option to do because where we were not very close to home, not like I could just call someone to run up the spare. Um, Chase advised me to call the local police department, and that is exactly what I did. So I had to call police and be like, this is terribly embarrassing in my exact words, but I locked my keys in my car. And, they sent an officer out and, maybe took about 10-15 minutes, but he got there, very nice guy. Managed to get the key out surprisingly easily. I mean, it really didn't take much, but
Yeah, it was the little window like poker thing. I don't know what to call it. It's
yeah,
like a
right,
button's probably the best term for it. But
right, sure.
he did yeah, they typically use like the little inflatable bag, which honestly makes me think like why aren't criminals using that thing? They usually like the stereotype is that they use crowbars. Like that he just shoved that bag right in there, pumped it
And
up,
no
and he could
problem.
like stick anything right into your car.
And
And
for
that's what he did.
visual, it kind of just looked like a blood pressure cuff, but it wasn't a cuff, it was just a
Yeah,
bag.
exactly.
And you
Yeah.
inflated it like you would inflate a blood pressure cuff. And that gave him room to get that poker thingy in there. And it was funny because he asked me like, "Where are the unlock buttons for this car?" And I said, "Well, there aren't any." So he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get it that way, but he sure did. Again, very easy. By the time he got there, he was probably only there for 5 minutes and maybe 10, and that was really just getting like the papers filled out and checking my ID and stuff. The car's not in my name, which made it a little bit awkward, but nothing complicated or anything. Didn't have any issues. So that was a little disruption from our pickleball. Less time consuming than Chase's disruption, but much more embarrassing, I would say. But it happens. It's a funny story. It makes for good podcast commentary. So
Of
maybe
course.
maybe it turned out all right in the end.
Yeah. It's the real embarrassing moment is the friends we made along the way. I don't know.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I see what
yeah.
you're trying to do there.
Yes. Um, yeah, I think what we could talk about as well is our little recent venture. I mean, last podcast we did it on the pod where we deleted Instagram and kind of committed ourselves to this life. But even though we are recording episodes ahead of schedule and, trying to help ourselves out here, it's only been, 1.5 days pretty much
Yes.
of
Today
no
is
Instagram,
Yeah.
little, very little screen time in comparison.
Yeah.
Um,
Today is the second full day of our Instagram detox. I don't know what else you deleted. I personally, I deleted Instagram. You might judge me for this, but I'm a pretty frequent Reddit user as well, so I deleted Reddit.
hmm,
Um, I don't really use TikTok besides like I like using its search bar to look up specific things. My coworker called it Gen Z Google. So I like to
of
use
course.
Gen Z Google, but I did delete that just in case.
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter. I deleted all of it pretty much. I mean, my
Yeah.
only major social media right now is Snapchat, and that's just because I don't really use that outside of talking to friends. I still have
On a
Discord. I
streak.
still have YouTube. That is about it though.
Yeah. But the whole point of this, and I think like the main lesson we're trying to explore ourselves and have some better self-discipline in general is just the idea of living a slower life. Some of that it's not really talking about in like the Atomic Habits book that I put you on, but
I was gonna try not to mention it, but
yeah, that we do. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of my motivations for that, and it's a very popular book, so it's gonna pop up. But
sure.
um, yeah, so it's just like, and my main thing is that I started thinking about it, and I've done this before. I've deleted Instagram, but I got right back on it just because it was like my main group chat of friends was on there, and we like always used it. And we talked about this last time where, it's like that's like your pretty much your excuse. It's like, well, I communicate on there. But then we pretty quickly realized that our excuse is kind of stupid when we can just log in on our computer and use the messages if we really want to do that, and we can just check in every
Yeah.
once in a while. And it's not worth having Instagram on there because that's what will just allow the easy habit. And the crazy thing is, honestly, and we both realized it, and I realized this last time I did this for myself, was um, you don't realize how much of a habit it is until it's gone. Because when you're
Absolutely.
picking up your phone and going in and literally like looking for the app, but it's not there because you
Yeah, my
deleted
my
it.
thumb has made very frequent motions towards where my Instagram app used to be.
Yeah. And obviously it's not there. So it's just that those moments are definitely points of reflection. But in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of reflection as well, I just think like I think my days feel slower personally. Like when because when you're sitting there doom scrolling on Instagram or something else or whatever it is, replace it with TikTok or whatever you want to do. YouTube Shorts if you're a weirdo, I guess. But or like 10 years old. But um,
No offense
the
to all the
point,
35-year-old, 10-year-olds out there
yeah,
that
of
work
course.
at oh shoot, what was
Speedway.
it? No, I pinned it, I think, in our DMs.
Oh, jeez.
Case Western students.
Yeah, there you
No
go.
offense, no offense to the 35-year-old, 10-year-old Case Western students.
Yeah, because that makes sense. But
Absolutely.
point is that um, we've not we. I was talking about myself. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I just generally feel like it's just my days are slower because when you're on Instagram, you waste so much time just doom scrolling. So then the
Yes.
time goes by way faster, and
And this is a
you
matter of hours for
yeah,
us at least.
a matter of hours, and literally, like we discussed before, you can't even remember about 95% of what you even watched. And that in itself is like just wow. Like it's absolutely mindless just garbage on there. And there
Yes.
are I'll give Instagram some well, Instagram and more so the creators on there. There are some stuff that are educational, useful, and stuff that I actually do enjoy. But that is like a needle in a haystack, dude. And the haystack is a bunch of just total brain rot garbage. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean, it's like pulling a
it's
ring out of a dumpster.
yeah, like it's not worth the fact that you have to sift through all of that to maybe get that or maybe get your algorithm to more geared towards that. And it's just I don't know. And now I've replaced like Instagram with the ebook app that we mentioned a little bit. Um that I can read my Hamilton book whenever I want from anywhere. Whenever I'm like bored and on my phone, I can just open the Hamilton book and read long form content. And there's a huge difference, and I think a huge difference and a lot more benefit with long form content than there is short form content because long form content's like an actual complete story that usually has some sort of lesson. And while I mean you could be doing long form content and watching a movie or a TV show that's, mindless and dumb and brain rot stupid. Um, but at the same time, if you do a book, most of the time, as long as you're not picking stupid books, I guess, it's gonna be helpful for you. So I don't know, but I think it's a more simpler life. Um, it honestly, my other observation is like it just makes my phone more boring. Like there's
Oh,
nothing.
absolutely. There have been
Yeah,
so many times between today and yesterday that I've opened my phone, realized I had nothing to do on it, and
put it
closed it.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
and so yesterday I spent the majority of the day at work. So I woke up maybe around 10:30. I went out to breakfast. I picked up Atomic Habits, read that for a little bit, and then I went into work a little bit early to try to resolve an issue that turned out to be a very easy fix. But then I ended up working from, like I said, 1 p.m., 1:01 p.m. to 12:01 a.m. I clocked out exactly 11 hours after I clocked in. Um, so, and there is a lot of time at work where, we do go on our phones. Since, watching escape rooms, it gets pretty mindless, pretty easy. Um, and, we can typically handle it while also checking our phones. So, but even then, I haven't thought about it as much as I probably could. And, a day and a half is pretty quick to be, trying to make reflections. Um, but it is, I like what you say. I mean, the days, yeah, maybe they do feel slower when you're not wasting hours and hours on Instagram.
yeah.
And again, I personally just I have not had the time yet to really notice the difference. But tomorrow I'm gonna start. My friend and I are gonna go to the gym again. I'm gonna get some
There you
stuff
go.
done, and yeah, hopefully, I'll start to see the difference, feel the difference. Um, but I think I think it's a good thing we're doing, and I almost wonder if like we could be going on there for a little bit instead of like quitting cold turkey, if you will. But I don't trust myself, and you probably
Yeah, I think yeah, no, because that's again, that's what I tried to do. Because last time I was just like, you know what? I'm done wasting my life on here. I'm just gonna get rid of it. And then I made the excuse where it's like, oh, but my main group chat's on there. So then I picked it up again, and then I realized that I just fell right back into the old habit right away. Like
right.
I think you have to realize that you are not as disciplined as you think you are, and I don't mean that in like a mean or insulting way. It's just the
No, it's
reality
just a
is that
matter of being
yeah,
self-aware
yeah, and it's
and
just like
honest with yourself.
yeah, and so you kind of just if you just instead of holding the candy holding the candy in front of the baby, just take the candy, throw it in a dumpster fire, and then it's not there at all. Like that's pretty much what we've done is where we just removed it from our environment. And this is actually something that is mentioned in Atomic Habits, where it's really easy to form good habits and break bad habits just by a simple change of environment. If, like I was telling you the other day, if you just put the books you want to read right in front of where you are all the time, or if you just carry the book around with you all the time, like I do on my phone, or if you just want to do the physical book itself, you will read it more because when you're bored, it's right there. There's no barriers, there's no extra steps. It's right there, very easy access. So then, in terms of breaking a bad habit, you do the reverse of that, and that's what I was talking about. How like some reviews are like, oh, it's repetitive. No, it's the reversal of the law, and it's in different aspects of it. So then
Right.
you take the environment and you change it to where now you have a lot more steps. And I think that's also what I mentioned the other day, where it's like the theoretical situation. If you want to stop watching TV so much, put the TV in your closet every single time you use it. So then when you just want to sit there and mindlessly watch TV, the idea of having to take your whole TV out of the closet and then set it up and then plug it in and then plug in like all the ports to be able to watch the TV, like all that stuff, all those extra steps, and all those extra roadblocks that you set for yourself, pretty much make you uh, too lazy to do your bad habit, which is
Right.
the perfect place to
Too
be.
lazy to be lazy. And
Yeah,
then
too
then
lazy.
you gotta take it all down again.
Yeah. So then but then you fall. But here's the issue lies is where it's like you're too lazy to do that. But then if you're also too lazy to do your good habits, that's when it's an issue. And the Atomic Habits also talks about how to make like good habits like attractive, which you will read all about that. And I don't fully comprehend a lot of that idea. I just know that it's like pretty much you need to make it easy, and that's what I was talking about. How like you just have to start small, and then once you get results, that's when it pretty much becomes attractive. And you see that a lot when like you start going to the gym. Like you don't get
Oh, yeah.
results probably in months when you start going to the gym. So a
No.
lot of people they immediately drop out of it within a few months because they're expecting like instant results, and that's not how it works. The working out in the gym is a very long game. You're like building up rewards and training conditioning for yourself in the long road and later on. Um, and I mean, but once you start seeing those results, then you pretty much get addicted to it, and then you're like, "Oh wow, it's working." So then
Yeah.
you just want to
Well,
keep going and going and going,
right,
and
and then
that's
it's important to maintain that, I mean, if you get there and then you just stop working out, I mean, my friend told me it only takes a few weeks to lose that muscle mass again, and then,
yeah.
you're right back to where you were before. And
Well, yeah,
I've
because you're
seen that personally. I started going to the gym. My first time was Halloween 2023, and I
hmm,
went probably every almost every day through the new year, and then it kind of fell off, and I picked it back up in the fall, and I hope to keep it going this summer. And I have seen some results, and I'm feeling good about them, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be necessarily, and I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I'm trying to keep it going and building, keeping the results that I have and making them a little bit better.
yeah, and that's what it's all about. That's all self improvement. Speaking of self improvement, um, my dad which I feel like I mentioned it on the other podcast as well, but my dad got me this book called Meditations plural by Marcus Aurelius, I think, or Aurelius. I don't. It's Roman, dude. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I will pull
Um,
it up.
okay. But he was a Roman emperor who was somewhat of a stoic.
Aurelius? I don't know.
It looks like it. I don't know.
Sure.
He was somewhat of a stoic emperor, which is not really like emperors. You just kind of imagine them as just some like barbaric, tyrannical like ruler of sorts who's just has a bunch of people under him and has control and just kills a bunch of people and all this other stuff. Which, by the way, Marcus did do that. He was still a Roman emperor, but he also showed his like soft side almost. And it's not really a soft side. I think it's a beautiful thing to have self-improvement and to be somewhat of a philosopher regardless of who you are. But he was a philosopher emperor, which is very unique for any Roman emperor. And it's called Meditations, which I'm still the introduction is like 50 pages, dude, because it you really do need that much background to understand what you're reading because it's a translated version of his like it's all Greek and all that and and not all of it was very easy to translate either. But the guy the like the author of the book I'm reading, not Marcus, um he is he's pretty credible in his Greek translation and overall like philosophy background as well as he's worked with other philosophers and Stoics and all that to make this version of the book. And he puts annotations in context so you can actually understand it more than because and I did some research and a lot of people were saying like Meditations is a book that you have to read multiple times. It's not something you can just, take a look at because it is hard even with the annotations and whatnot. Like you really have to let yourselves take time to absorb the information through multiple exposures kind of thing. But yeah, that's my second book in the rotation. Right now, I got the Bible, of course, Meditations, and Ron Chernow's Alexander Hamilton. Reading all three of those, and usually I like to stick to just one. But I was listening to my church's podcast, and one of the pastors, who's definitely they say that he's like the professor type, like their styles of uh, like preaching sermons and whatnot. And the main pastor, they call him like the Backstreet Boy, pretty much, because that's kind of like his style in general. It makes sense. And then, like I said, the other guy, he's a professor. And then my personal youth pastor, he's just, I don't know, or maybe he's the Backstreet Boy. I don't know. I honestly forget all three of them. But um, the point is that he's a big book guy, and he like has like a degree in biology and all this other stuff, like very academic type. Um, and he was talking about how like it's actually probably better to read multiple books at a time because number one, it's possible, but number two, it keeps things like fresh and new. So you don't get bored with one book and then never pick up reading again, kind of thing.
And that's
Um,
actually kind of an interesting thought because I have two books outside of Atomic Habits. I have two books from my library that I would like to read, and I stick to one at a time because I don't trust myself to like not confuse the two and mix things up. But that is an interesting thought because yeah, there are points where not that I'm necessarily bored with the book, but it's kind of hard to pick up. I mean, I haven't
yeah,
picked it up in a few days now, which I should probably change. But um, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably not going to try it, at least not with these books. But it's an interesting thought to consider.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I was definitely on the side of just doing one book at a time, but I kind of like just like it feels like I'm just picking. Like I'm like there's like a whole snack tray of tree cheese in front of me, and I'm like some provolone, some pepper jack. Like it's just
Eh, That's not a bad
like
that's not a bad way to put it though. I kind of
yeah,
like
just like getting like just reading a couple from each, reading chapters. I love the system I have where if I open the book, I have to finish the chapter that I'm on. And it makes it really easy to finish a book because if you can stick to that discipline, that means every time you pick up that book, you're one chapter more. So, but the thing is with like Hamilton, bro, the chapters are not short. So I'm not doing that with Hamilton because I that means like I pick up the book, oh, I'm gonna read for an hour and a half. Like it's like
it.
I can't do that. It's a 731 page book. With Atomic Habits, that is very doable. Very, very doable.
Yes.
Because
No, absolutely. Like I said, I read the introduction and I read chapter 1 and it may be I mean, I'm not a very fast reader, so it probably 28 pages might have taken me half an hour,
yeah.
maybe a little bit longer. Um, but yeah, definitely doable.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely recommend that as a strategy to just generally try to keep you on pace because if you just pick up the book, you read like two pages and put it down. Like not only that, but I didn't like the idea of like not having like one complete thought. Like the biggest thing I like about Atomic Habits is number one, the chapter summaries at the end, which is a nice way to like put a bow tie on each chapter. Um, but also just like the fact that each chapter is usually it's one complete thought and of course they build upon each other like it is a comprehensive story um but generally speaking each chapter is just one very nice package altogether so being able to just read one chapter at a time you're not and especially if you're doing multiple books at a time which it sounds like you're not doing that but if you were to like only getting incomplete thoughts from each one like it's not I don't know. I don't see that as efficient or ideal in my
No, and that
opinion.
would
And
make it even more confusing.
yeah, so
Like you're much
reading a
more
ch
susceptible to mix, like blend them.
oh yeah. But and when you read a chapter at a time, that means you got a chapter from there, like I said, a little bit of pepper jack, a little provolone, a little bit of sharp cheddar, like you're picking and choosing, but you're getting at least a full bite pretty much from each. You're not just like nibbling at each and then you just kind of just get all jumbled in your head kind of thing.
Right.
So
And you know
yeah,
what? I, I'm glad you mentioned that chapter summary of Atomic Habits because to be honest with you, I asked myself, like, okay, what was chapter one about? And I rembered some things. It took me a second, but um, I didn't get all of it. But yeah, now that I'm looking at this chapter summary, it really does help bring remember a lot without having to, skim through the whole thing again.
yeah, which is really nice because I mean he sums it up into a lot of just like couple points and then um yeah, I mean I like that it's at the end too because again like you said it kind of just reminds you of what you just read and it puts a whole bow tie and just kind of finishes out before you move on to the next chapter. There were times that I did skip the chapter summary because if I felt like I already understood the chapter and it just felt like it was just
I mean,
repetitive, then yeah,
yeah,
I'd
there
move
were
on.
some exact sentences that got repeated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you really comprehend, but again, now that it's been a day and I don't want to say I forgot all of it, but it was nice. It was a nice refresher, and I'll probably look at it again before I read chapter two.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is it's right there. So you can just skim it and then move on. So you have, a comprehensive look at everything.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's a true power in reading. I mean, knowledge is power. And I just wish like ELA classes didn't ruin that for me. Like I wish a lot more ELA classes were a lot more open-ended and you had a choice. Like you were able to follow your interest because I think at the end of the day everyone actually really does like reading. They're just not reading what they like. Um and
Uh,
being
I mean,
I
I think it extends to a lot more people than your English class might suggest, but I think there is a demographic of people that do not know how
okay,
to read and do
and
not want to learn.
let me clarify it. Like my dad does not like reading like a book, but he will listen to audiobooks and he can tell you everything about that audiobook. Because he just learns better that way. He learns like if someone is lecturing something to him like verbally and everything and like visuals and or whatever, like that's how he learns a lot better. And I think I'm more towards that way, but I can do both. Like I feel like I'm a hybrid almost where I can do it either way. And together, like I said, with an audiobook and reading it, it's like super comprehension.
I
So,
see.
yeah, so it's like but he enjoys reading audiobooks, which is a weird term to say reading because it's really listening, but he's still like reading a book just audibly pretty much. Um so I and the point is really is it's like you I think it's pretty fair to like number one, humans are driven by passion. If you put anyone who says that they hate reading, but then you put a book or a book in some form of like their very favorite thing, whether it's like Minecraft, Roblox, or physics, like you mean whatever it is, like they will enjoy it. The act of reading itself and learning about stuff that they enjoy and stuff that interests them, I think everyone enjoys that. I don't think there's anyone who genuinely hates learning about stuff that they're actually passionate about. Like
Mhm.
I that just sounds like a sad life. Like I I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I agree with that for the most part. I mean, I still do think there are some people that just head
Yeah, I
empty and
mean, of course, yeah, there's
floating
gotta be some
around, but
people.
yeah, no, I think that works for most people.
Yeah, and like that's why like yeah, I would never I would say that I hate reading back in the day, but now I say yeah,
Say that. Yeah.
reading is a very like great tool to just absorb knowledge and learn about the things because there's books have been around for so long, dude. And like I don't want to read a textbook. That's stupid. But I'll read a whole 731 page of Alexander Hamilton because I love the musical and he's a fascinating founding father to me. I'm not just reading it just because it's a musical. I'm reading because the musical inspired me to go deeper because this book itself inspired the musical and the musical really does the musical is very detailed, don't get me wrong, but it still is a show. So it's not going to be like a
Made to
lecture hall.
entertain.
Yeah, they also need to entertain. So it only includes like a lot of the surface level of a lot of stuff. And even some stuff is slightly manipulated to make one complete musical story, but not exactly um how it played out in real life, which is kind of an
Right.
interesting thought because people just assume that Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened. Not
because
really.
that's how it happened in Hamilton. Yeah, in the
Yeah,
musical Hamilton.
and I will give Lin-Manuel Miranda credit because number one, he's a genius. Number two, um, like he does include a lot of very accurate and very like just he's sticking to the book, which is a lot of things that people fail when in terms like when you ever see like a book go into a movie, that happens every single time. It's the same concept where it's like, yeah, we're inspired by the book and that's what we're supposed to be basing it off of,
I
but we can
believe there
only
is an exception, but I will get to that later
okay.
because
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
another
but
thing that I wanted to go back to.
gotcha. But like there's only so much you can do to make it into well, at least generally speaking. And like you're going to explain, there's an exception. I think there are plenty of exceptions that have happened that are incredible, but it's like generally speaking, you lose some of the data along the way just because
Oh, absolutely.
you have to change it or convert it into a different format, and that's not a very
Yeah,
easy
you
thing to
gotta
do.
keep it feature-length film, not direct
Yeah, of
cut on steroids.
course.
Yeah. Um, well, it's funny what you said about, like, he's your favorite founding father or a fascinating founding father.
Yeah.
It reminded me, in my government class, my teacher had a poster on his wall, and it had, like, all the names of the founding fathers,
Hmm.
and half of them probably don't even have pictures. And the song lyric, "Every other founding father's story gets told, every other founding father gets to grow old."
Yeah.
And that seems like a pretty accurate statement because, like, these guys don't even have pictures. Nobody knows who they are, and yet they were maybe not as influential as someone like Thomas Jefferson, but they were in the room where it happened, pun intended.
Oh no!
Like,
Wow!
they
Wow!
they were there, they were influential to the creating of this country, and yet their name their name is recognized by next to nobody, and there's probably
Yeah.
no information about some of them. Like, they probably
Oh,
don't
dude,
even have a Wikipedia page.
yeah, and most people like could tell you just a couple things about Hamilton, maybe before the musical got popular. That's the other thing is that Lin-Manuel Miranda is truly doing like a very like good service to Alexander Hamilton, and I mean, really Eliza Hamilton gets the credit. That's honestly like I think that shows the power of having an amazing life partner and having an amazing wife as a man because I mean that girl put up with all the craziness that Alexander Hamilton carried with him, not to mention,
Including an affair.
yeah, including an affair. Like he literally cheated on her. And she after he died, dueling Aaron Burr, his once friend, now an enemy. Like
Oh boy.
it
Here we
just
go.
that. Yeah, yeah, you're the one who started bringing lines in.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Eliza Hamilton, best of wives and best of women. Anyways,
Oh
um,
boy. Here we go again.
yeah.
He's
um,
he's rapid firing everybody.
of course. Like e- even just that the very intricacies of the fact that like Aaron Burr, like Alex pretty much tried to almost seek him as some sort of mentor because he was ahead of him. He was at one point I think he was the president of like Princeton. Like not Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr was a very educated and well-respected man from an academic side of things. Leadership skills, right? Alexander Hamilton passed him up in that, and that's why he got ahead. But yeah, you're changing formats. You're going from a book to a musical. And a musical, I mean, Hamilton itself is very long. It's like 2.5 hours plus, but it's also, thing after thing after thing. There's not really a dull moment in Hamilton. Um, versus the book kind of just like lets you kind of just actually experience the different moments of his life. Like even in the musical, the song the Hurricane towards the end, which is right before Reynolds pamphlet and where all the things are going on, that is kind of pays homage, and I mean he says it in the song. Like when he was 17, a hurricane destroyed his entire island in the Caribbean that he's living on, and somehow he did not die. Like it was talking like I've already got to this part because again, it starts from his young age on because it's a biography. Why wouldn't it? Um, And in that, he like literally the whole island got wiped. Like it was a huge hurricane, and then there was an earthquake in the ocean. So then that turned into a tsunami. So it was not only a hurricane, but then a tsunami as well. Like it said, 15 feet wall of water, I think.
Oh,
And so yeah, and it's an island, so it's not like Lake Erie. Like most of our beaches are really low, but then the houses are a lot higher. So like a tsunami on Lake Erie, which would probably never happen, um, wouldn't really do much besides like the lake houses that are actually on the lower level or like at sea level. Um, so like we would be fine, but when you're talking about an island that the whole thing pretty much sits at sea level, like I don't know how this guy survived. And we're talking about, the 1700s. Like it's not like they have like advanced stuff or any like natural disaster prep that's gonna really compare to what we have today. So in the song he says I couldn't seem to drown, I couldn't seem to die. Like and that's really true. Like it's incredible. This guy in his young age went through so much tragedy and still came out this very fury um fiery is a better word. I don't know. Like very intense founding father who was just with everything that he did. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's quite. Oh, and actually, an interesting point is in that song he talks about how like I'll write my way out, and that he truly did that. He posted. He was like a writer for like the local newspaper or whatever, and he published a paper and he published it anonymously, um even though and they presented it as it was anonymous and like, oh, it even said like, we found this letter, we just picked it up off the ground kind of thing. And that wasn't true. It was just really they were just trying to make it anonymous. And it got so much attention. He earned a scholarship because the whole island was like they wanted to know his identity. It was that good. Like they were like, who is this? Like this is incredible. And then they found out and then paid for him to go to America and get educated and all that. And that's so he really did write his way out of poverty. And again, that's where the musical you don't get all these little cool and it's a cool story, but it's like the musical doesn't have time for that,
no.
unfortunately. Like
And
if
and you've made me want to read this book now because yeah, that you've just given me so many details that the musical can't fill in, and I mean that's fascinating. That's incredible. It's fascinating.
yeah. Yeah, no, and I definitely recommend the book. It is not an easy read being 731 pages, but like for me it's like a summer project pretty much because it is a long book. Um but yeah, I mean, I like and know the musical, so I would definitely take a look at it and pick it up because at some point, I mean, you should probably focus on the three books you have at hand now. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, but I mean, there's plenty of just fascinating stuff. Every other turn, like most of the time in the musical, it's like one sentence, and it's still good. It's still good that he's playing like homage to these events and trying to include as much details as he can. But the book shows you like the beginning of the event, the end of the event, and every little thing in between. So yeah, and I don't know. It's and again, this is the book that inspired the musical, so that itself is pretty cool. But to actually see like the different details that were picked out and used for the musical, and the different details that weren't, because they simply just didn't have the time or the space for it. That's also fascinating in itself. And I know that like the next time I will witness it at Playhouse Square when it comes back. Um, Again, because I watched it twice at Playhouse Square now, which was incredible both times. But they are coming back next summer. Um, so make sure you actually pay attention to some show dates because I know you've had some recent events with In the Heights and
Yes.
Total
I
Letdown.
I will be keeping a very close eye on Hamilton dates and if any tickets are
Oh yeah,
actually, less than a second mortgage,
of course.
as if I have a first one, of course.
Yeah, but
I will, on the other hand, if you're ready to transition out of.
yeah, I mean we've said enough against about Hamilton these last two episodes, but yeah, I recommend the book. Very thorough, very well written, and there's nothing you could wonder about Hamilton because it literally is just so put together. It's every little thing about him.
That does
But yeah,
sound that does sound like a good recommendation. Well, as
yes,
opposed to a mortgage, as you know, and um, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I am pretty much just waiting for this car to arrive. I have been approved for a new car, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this. I feel like you're somebody that would disagree with this fact, but I am leasing this car. I'm not buying it. I have decided to go the route of the lease because I like the idea of, not having to necessarily maintain a car or outside of obviously gas and oil and stuff. And I like the notion of, being able to get a new car in essence every few years, and again, not really have to maintain it. So I've decided to go the route of the lease. And of course, being 18, and I'm not getting anything, I'm not leasing a Mercedes or anything. But I like it. It is a 2024 Kia Forte, and I am looking forward very much to getting that. I test drove it at the dealership, and it felt pretty good. That was one thing I was nervous about. Every car feels a little bit different, and
yeah,
I've driven some cars. Like I've briefly driven my sister's car, which is a Ford Escape, and I don't even think I left the driveway because I wasn't trying to, but I had such a hard time like controlling it at all, and I don't even really know
really.
why. I've briefly driven a larger truck, which strangely was much smoother. Forgive me as I
Hmm.
sip my water, but I was nervous, to test drive this thing because we were really, it was really looking good because we had some difficulty. We went to a few other dealers. We went to a Toyota and we went to a Ford. And basically neither both of them said, you're not going to find a lease for less than $500 a month. And that was
Jeez.
very discouraging. Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
we were talking about a Corolla hybrid at Toyota. That's their cheapest car, and he quoted it at $499 a month, like generously. Like that was considering that we were going to fall into a pretty high tax bracket that I don't know if that would have actually happened. So, and then again, we went to Ford, and Ford doesn't even have sedans anymore. Like they have the
Like
Mustang.
any?
No, not one. They have the Mustang, but the next smallest car, I believe, is an Escape, which is pretty much a full size
Not it,
SUV,
yeah, I mean, it's like maybe a compact SUV, maybe, but it's not
but
that
it's
small
not
of
a
a car.
sedan. No, it is not. My
Yeah,
sister has one. It is not a small car. It's not huge. You're right. It's not like a full scale SUV, but sure, a compact SUV. That's what we'll call it. Not a small car. That's the smallest thing they
yeah,
have. And I kind of figured,
that's
and my
crazy.
dad was the one that wanted to go to Ford. And I kind of thought as we're there, like, if I can't get a Corolla, why am I going to be able to get a Ford? Anything. And, my dad
Well,
drives
I
a
will
Ford
say
truck.
yeah,
Huh.
I will say my first, like, new car, like how you're doing, like going to a dealer or whatever, is definitely going to be a Toyota. Those things are which it seems like they're more expensive these days. I mean, the used market, and it seems like the general attitude is like that they're cheaper cars, but, um which also, by the way, you're leasing like a 2024, so it makes sense
Well,
that it's probably more on
yeah.
the pricier side. But
And I
to
was going to have to get into pre-owned as a last resort, but I really didn't want to get something with a bunch of miles on it already.
yeah, but Toyota, I mean, dude, those things, Japanese know what they're doing when it comes to
Oh yeah. I read an article
cars. Those,
like
yeah.
the 10 most durable cars, and it was like all Toyota and maybe a few
Oh yeah.
Rams, strangely enough, but it was all Toyota.
Yeah. No, it's they make them pretty much like tanks that you can't destroy them. Maybe you change the oil, but it's not like it's even necessary when the thing just like doesn't even want to die. Like those cars, people do insane things to them. And you see some like really old beat up Toyotas, and they probably want run incredibly well, even if they look like total garbage, because you literally can beat the absolute crap out of those things, and they refuse to die. It's absurd. When you get into the Mercedes and German market with Audi and Volkswagen, Those are German engineering. They're very, very, very well made, but they're built to be maintenance, and that's where they differ with Toyota. Where Toyota is built to like, yeah, maybe maybe you maintenance it, but they're built to last overall. Where German engineering is built to last only if you maintain it. Those like people do terrible things to Mercedes and really anything German. I mean that whole company, the Porsche, all of that stuff. If you don't maintain them and treat them well, they don't work well. They don't cooperate with you. But if you do, they will last forever pretty much because they still are very well engineered. So I don't know. And then American is just kind of like very inconsistent. You
Yeah,
get some
my
you get some very well engineered, very great engines out of some American cars and the others that are absolute just garbage.
yeah,
So,
my
I
my
don't know.
sister has been driving Fords pretty much her whole, adult life, and
Yeah.
she likes them, and she hasn't had issues recently, but she had I think it was a Focus like
Mm.
years. I mean, she's had multiple Focuses, but there was one car she had. I don't remember exactly what. Terrible. Had so many issues. I remember like my cousin had to take me to school one day because it broke down on the way to school. We were right there, but like it was kind of in between, like too long to walk, too short to uh,
Yeah.
not. I don't know. You get the idea.
Yeah.
So and my parents like American. We've had a lot of Chevrolets. And
Yeah,
that
and
that Spark,
Chevy's
that Spark that I drive, we've had next to no issues. We had one time where it didn't start, and
mm.
that was like it. In 8
Yeah,
years.
I mean, I think Chevy's definitely had a glow up for sure. Because Chevy used to be the brand back in the day. And then they kind of got away from that. And then I think these days they're slowly getting towards it, but like, like still doesn't have a great reliability record. Nothing like a Toyota or nothing like, German engineering. We can't really beat the Europeans when it comes to cars or the Asians. But
Yeah, no. I mean,
when it,
the Japanese, like the tech giants already anyway. Yeah, we're not beating them in cars.
no. It's just so absurd. Like I don't know. And people hate on Priuses, but I would do it just for the gas mileage. I really would. Um,
Absolutely. That was why I
it,
really wanted to get the Corolla hybrid, is because it got like 50 miles to the gallon.
yeah, the Prius hybrid's like 70. Like it's
Oh, really?
absurd.
Wow.
The Priuses are even more. That's their big selling point is that like even just gas, they get 50, 60 miles to the gallon and they're like super aerodynamic and super efficient. That's why they look weird is because they're
Well,
made to
I
be efficient
have to look this up
and not
now
made.
because
Yeah, I mean
Toyota, you said
the new
Prius
Prius,
hybrid? Say?
yeah,
Oh, it
they
looks
redes
fine. Well, it's a little weird, but it's not too
it is
bad. I mean, it's better than a
yeah,
Cybertruck or
yeah, I
something like
don't
that.
hate the new design. Some people don't like it. I also
It's
don't
not
hate
my
the old
favorite.
design. I mean, it's not like great, but I don't care what it looks like when I'm paying barely anything for that tiny tank and going an
Yeah,
absurd amount of range. Like
and
it's
it's in the Prius, base Prius, MSRP is from 27.9, and that's 57 city, 56 highway. It's higher in the city, which is weird, but
that is odd. Well, is it a
um,
hybrid?
this just I typed in hybrid, but it just says Prius. It doesn't say hybrid.
Oh, because usually it would make sense if it was hybrid because hybrid usually like at the lower miles per gallon or like the stop and go traffic they go on the electric power, so it makes sense
That makes sense.
in the city with highway because the higher speeds they would need the actual engine.
That is an
So
interesting thought. I've never actually thought about that. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of weird. Hybrid cars, I don't know. I'm very indifferent. I used to be a lot more turned on the electric cars, and then I'm just like I don't know. Like when there's a couple of Asian companies working together to make like alternate fuel vehicles and they use like fuel cells. It just like alternates to electric but are like using engines just different fuel sources that are not as polluting. And those are I think more of a realistic future. I think electric cars are definitely a stepping stone, and I think Tesla is a cool brand overall. And I
Yeah, people
actually
people hate on Tesla, but I mean,
I
I
dig
think
them.
I think
They're
electric
weird.
cars. I mean, well, yeah, and Elon's weird, but I think getting rid of you know, gas powered cars is the way of the future. Whether people like it, you know, and people talk about these cars don't have motors. This isn't the American whatever. But like, we're killing the planet,
Yeah.
and I don't want to go into that tangent. I don't want to sound like extreme, but like we're killing the planet, and I've always believed that if we accelerate the process of replacing gas in everything, and especially cars. Cars are huge, especially in America. I feel like that would be a really big help, and I think it's the way of the future anyway. But even if we weren't in a climate crisis, but you know, I don't know. I guess I have a very controversial opinion on that, but I don't think
Which
Tesla is doing a bad thing by making electric cars. And I get that the charging stations aren't everywhere yet. I mean, it's not going to be like gas stations probably for decades, but I, I mean, they're working on it, and I think it's the way to go.
well, here's the kicker though, right? Is that most people don't realize and they won't televise is the fact that to make the amount of lithium ion batteries, you need to mine an absurd amount of lithium. And they do that in like very third world countries, like very poor countries. That's the only
Mm,
thing they have. That's their only money source is really lithium ion because of the electric cars and all of that, and because we use batteries and lithium ion specifically a lot more. And like it's a whole thing, like literally like slave labor. Like it's a dark industry. They go all out, and it's like, oh, it's not slave labor. They only get paid 3 cents an hour. Like it's
oh,
practically slave
excuse you.
labor.
Yeah.
Like so it gets really dark really quick, and then you go in the directions will have coal or other sources that aren't clean. So there's, I mean, different studies, and if you do different investigations, sometimes the cars themselves actually really are worse than gas cars because, but at the same time, I can see the idea like that. Oh, well, it's just a temporary thing. And then now that the car is there, like a gas car would just keep using fuel and keep using fossil fuels. Well, an electric car is way more expensive to maintain. And then once you're done with it, then you just have a bunch of batteries that you can't like, can you recycle them that easily? And if so, like lithium ion doesn't like decompose. It's metal and battery and all like it's so and neither does like a gas car, obviously. It's also metal and all this other stuff, but they're so they're even harder on the roads. And one of the main sources of pollution is actually brake dust, which people don't also realize that comes off your brakes when you brake, and that happens every single time, and that's combine that with a bunch of cars, and then you take an electric car that's 6,000 pounds, which is probably 2,000 pounds heavier than the average gas car that size. It
I
puts
actually
off a
find that
lot.
interesting that electric
Yeah.
cars would be heavier. I would
Oh,
be I would have thought the
they're
opposite.
way heavier because batteries are so heavy, dude. They're so
Huh.
because they're all dense. Batteries are super dense. Like you think of like your typical Duracell battery, and then you times that by about 4,000. Like that's a lot. Like engines are heavy, but these days they make engines super efficient and smaller so that the cars are lighter. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very tough issue, and I don't want to sound like some like very anti-electric cars, but I'm very just real and everything where it's like I'm not just gonna have some bias. I do like electric cars. I think Tesla makes some really cool things. Even when, one of my friend's birthday, they rented a Tesla Model S Plaid on like the Turo thing or whatever, and they were joyriding around my town, and picked me up, and then they did the whole cheetah mode that that car has, in like which is launch control, and went 0 to 90 miles per hour in a neighborhood in like 3 seconds or less. Like
Wow.
absurdly fast. And you know
That's the
what's really
90.
terrifying? Yeah. What's really terrifying is that it's silent. So it's like when you're typical
It's
like a
like the
gas car,
Batmobile.
Yeah, like, it's absolutely silent. Well, it's not absolutely silent, but it sounds like a spaceship. And, like, all these, like, graphics come up on the screen, and it goes in the like, it's absurd. I actually have a video of me doing it that I can show you after. I can show you my
Please.
reaction video. But, yeah, and the speakers in that car were amazing, but also, mind you, we were sitting in a $100,000 vehicle. 'Cause
Well, right. I
the
mean,
Tesla had yeah, it's the highest end they have, because the Roadster, I don't even know what happened to that, but yeah, I mean, that I think it's like 1.9 seconds 0 to 60, and then, yeah, like I said, 90, it literally felt like it was 3 seconds around, and it felt like a blink of an eye. Because I mean, dude, your whole body, of course, thrown into the seat, and
oh
you're
yeah.
just terrified because it sounds like a spaceship going absurdly fast, way faster acceleration than anyone's used to. And but yeah, but at the same time, that car has such a low, uh, like, area of gravity, or low center of gravity rather is the right term, that they actually handle very well. But that's because they're so heavy, and they're heaviest at the batteries, and the batteries are all the way in the bottom of the car. So they have a great low center of gravity, but they're terribly heavy. And when you're going that fast and accelerating that fast, yeah, you put off a ton of brake dust. Pollute the air more when it comes to brake dust. So when they say like zero emissions, it's like, not really.
I've
I mean, you
never
do.
even heard of brake dust, so that is interesting.
It's yeah, and it's not like Tesla's gonna advertise that. No one
No, of
wants to
course
talk
not.
about that, because electric cars, I think, are a stepping stone, but I am not gonna go as to say that they are the future, because it's hard. I think in some capacity, yeah, they are. Like, I think like little cars and like little stuff, but when you're talking about like a whole big truck, like, that needs a ton of range, like, unless you have some major innovations in batteries to make them lighter and more efficient and way more powerful to get a ton more range, and you think of some way to make it actually zero emissions and not as heavy, like, that's the future. But there needs to be some changes. Absolutely. Like, changes need to be done, and we can't just, like, pretty much have to, like, oh, nope, electric cars are the future. That's it. Like, there are other options. That's why all these Asian companies are kind of like, no, we're not gonna go with this crazy American innovation. We're gonna do our own thing, and we're gonna make it even better, and we're gonna jump off of all the innovation that we've had with, ICE, like, wait, intra combustion, whatever, like, pretty much combustion engines. That's, I forget what ICE actually stands for. I mean, I know the CE is combustion engines, but I don't know what the I stands for anymore. Um, but like, they get to use all the innovation that they've been doing with that, and then just alternate to a different fuel source or fuel cell or way of just going about things, and they can still keep all the innovation. Or again, hybrids are very, like, easy middle ground, because they can keep innovating with that while still having a lot of the benefits of electric vehicle, by having, stop and go traffic, you're just on the electric, and having the option to be a quieter vehicle whenever you want. But then again, now you have a motor and a battery. So now you're probably arguably even heavier, which so it's just, we I think that honestly the big issue is that you just need to make it lighter. If you can make the cars lighter, you can have a much easier future outlook, and that's the hardest innovation that I think they're still trying to work on. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting future ahead of us when it comes to automotive stuff and technology and all that. But I think there's a really bad way to go about it and a really good way to go about it. And I think the only way to go about it is to just be open minded in general, and be open minded and not, you know, close minded to the fact that, yep, that's the only thing we're doing. Like, we can't do that. Those are my thoughts.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know
and
if you have any.
had I known all of that, I probably wouldn't, you know, be as confident in what I said about electric cars being the future. That is interesting, and I
Well,
guess we'll
yeah,
see how it goes. For now, I look
yeah,
forward to, like I said, I ended up picking up a Kia Forte. Uh,
yep,
the monthly lease isn't, it's not low. I think it's still hovering just below $400 a month, which I should be able to manage. I mean, it's not going to be easy.
You
Um,
do work quite a lot there, so
I try to work as much as I can, and again, um, the I work in an escape room, which is inside of a bowling alley, and that doesn't do as well in the summer when people want to be outside. But for right now, we did expand our hours, which I find really weird, but I'm not complaining. So we're gonna have more hours per day. And my manager has still managed to give me 4 days a week, which I'm very grateful for. I work a second job in the summer at a baseball stadium, which admittedly I'm really not liking as much this year, but it's still there. It's still a little bit of extra money. Um, Sorry, I actually just got a text from that manager. Got a little sidetracked, but
oh,
yeah. So I think I'm gonna be able to do it. And again, as I was telling you earlier, I'm looking forward to being less susceptible to locking my keys in the car, and
oh, yeah.
um, also having power windows because for 2016 you would think that it would have power windows, but I have been
Nope.
cranking my windows just like the good old days. And
That's
my one
insane.
friend who my friend Eric, um, he he calls my car the Footmobile, and I really don't know why. But I'm looking forward to not having to my car be called a foot anymore.
Yeah.
I actually haven't told him about that. I told my one friend
Oh, you
not to
just
tell
wanna
him
surprise him?
because I'm gonna pull up in it and be like, I don't have the foot anymore. Gosh darn it! And see how he reacts. He
Wow.
actually just texted me yesterday. He's like, "I just saw a foot at a local Honda dealership," and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Okay." And he's like, "Well, I knew you were looking." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Little did he know, because I was going to try to find something similar, but I very quickly gave
Yeah.
up on that. But
Which, I mean, Hondas are in the same boat. I mean, they're both Japanese, of course, but, like, you can't destroy a Honda engine. It's like it's just not possible. I think Toyota does it best, but, yeah, I mean, Honda's in the same boat, and it's just I don't know what's the culture over there when in terms of, like, Japanese automotive, but it's the right way
fair enough.
of doing
And we didn't even go to a Honda dealership. We probably wouldn't have went to a Toyota. The reason we went to Kia is because my there's been a few Kias in my family in the last 10 years, but we had a Kia Soul, the iconic green Kia Soul, as a matter of
Oh,
fact. And
I would never get that car. I don't get it.
my mom loved it. And this
Hmm,
was literally like 2012, but
yeah.
um, she liked it. And then more recently, we had a 2019 Kia Sportage, which my mom also liked a lot. So we went there, ended up with that, and I'm not complaining one bit. And again, like we were talking about, I like cars that are good on gas, and I think this
Yeah.
one we saw averages 32 miles to the gallon and pushes 40 on the highway.
There you
So
go.
that's all right with me. And we did establish the gas tanks a little bit bigger, so hopefully should be able to drive that thing a good while, and hopefully it'll be a smooth lease, and then maintain good credit, get another one in 3 years, and never have to worry about finding a car again.
Yeah, which you did say you would think I'd be, like, more on the buying type because that's what I've done. I've done that because I'm doing used cars, and you don't lease a used car. I
That's
mean, at
that's
least not
true.
if it's a dealer, yeah, but not like, if you're getting a lease, you get a new car, but that's, like, the main benefit of a lease. But I think leasing, it depends on who you are, and it depends on what you want, but leasing a lot of the time is more financially responsible just because cars lose their value, like, so quick.
Literally when you drive them off the lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so quick. And leasing, like, you're pretty much borrowing the car, is falling on you as much versus when you actually own the vehicle and then you have the responsibility of either trading it in, which now it's at that terrible value, or selling it yourself, which is even worse. Like,
Right.
those are the kind of luggage you have, which I mean, I'm definitely someone who's like, I want to kind of thing. Like, I have that more of that mentality, but
And that's fair.
also, yeah, but I'm not going to forego the idea that, it's either more financially responsible or it's less to worry about and less of a hassle when you want to get a new one kind of thing. So
I
I
did
don't know.
I did hear I heard someone describe leasing a car or like renting an apartment um as peeing into the wind, basically, throwing your money into something that will never be yours. And I see
Mm,
where they're coming from with that, but I mean, at the same time, like you said, the value gets so. I mean, it's not like you're holding on to a golden gem forever. Like a 2024 Kia
yeah,
Forte will not have the same rep as a Beetle in 60 years. No one's gonna remember the 2024 Kia Forte, and I don't
yeah.
care. I don't need to own that thing forever. Now, another thing that I'm fortunate enough to have, Kia provides gap insurance uh,
Oh,
by default in their lease.
what is
So
gap insurance?
basically, if I were to get in an accident, or whatever the case may be, regular insurance would only cover the current value of the car, and
Mm,
then I would be responsible for the rest. Because again, we like we said, we know depreciation value is a real thing, and
yeah,
rapidly, it's very quick. So gap insurance basically covers the rest. Um,
nice.
so very nice to have that, and I'm picking that car up sometime this coming week. I think it's
Yeah,
supposed to be here Wednesday, but I work Wednesday, so it'll probably be on Thursday. Um, One way or another, shouldn't be too much longer. Won't have to worry about again calling the police to open my car for me.
hmm
And interesting new development in our in this period of our lives where we have a lot of change happening. So looking forward to that.
yeah. And I think it's definitely a good way to build credit because even like though your like dad's a cosigner or whatnot, you get to pretty much piggyback off of his credit that he's built because of that. So
Right.
it's kind of like when you like have a credit card and like your parents just like put your name on it just to give you credit history. I think that's another very easy way. But yeah, I mean, it is quite the endeavor. I personally don't know that I would be comfortable with that just because that is a large payment at 18, but you also work way more than I'm even able to with all my stuff that I'm doing with Ohio State. So it's just, I mean, if
Yeah.
you can make it work, you can make it work and
And
you will
again,
have better credit history than I, not a doubt. But, and also a
right.
brand new car.
And I
So,
mean, I had minimal choice. Like I had to get something basically.
yeah,
And like I said, I really didn't want some used car that already like, is scuffed up and it has miles on it, and then I have to buy it because why would you again, why would you lease a
yeah,
used car? Then it's just and then I'm stuck with it and I can't get out of financing it, and then it's just terrible. So I'm pretty content again with
yeah.
where I ended up. And yeah, I totally understand why, you wouldn't want to do that right now because again, you're pretty busy. You don't even have the chance to work as much as I do, and that's another reason why I'm glad I'm staying home for a few years instead of going straight to a 4-year university.
Yeah.
Is to save that money.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Especially because now
so
you definitely need it in
yeah,
terms of carrying
right.
that kind of
And
payment, but
yeah, and I am investing money as well. You got me set up with Fidelity, and I called them a few months ago, and I set up some investment accounts. One is a Roth IRA, and the other one is a shorter term. It's just called an individual account. I set it to like grow over the next 10 years or whatever, and probably use it towards maybe not a I don't even know. It's just there. It's
yeah,
made to grow.
yeah,
They have a program called Fidelity Go where basically you put in the money, you say I want to do this with it. Here's how you can prioritize short term, minimizing short term losses or prioritizing the long term gain, and it makes the investments for you because I didn't pay attention in my investing class. I don't know what I'm
mm,
doing on the stock market. I'm going to let them do it for me. And I think that's a great thing to have. I'm very glad that it's there. I think, obviously I would like to think I'm doing a good thing by investing early. And um that's just another thing, that I'm focusing on.
yeah, I didn't even know if Fidelity had that. I've just been doing it manually, which I have made great returns, but that's because I have, like, done my research and invested at smart times, but I'm taking more of the Warren Buffett kinda just set it and forget it approach where you put your money in good stocks and then never touch it
Absolutely.
again, pretty much. Because it's just the reality is the stock market is going to keep growing as it has forever. And I mean, of course, a crash can happen, but for the most part, that shouldn't stop you from trying to put it in. And usually, a lot of that stuff is predicted before stuff happens like that, so you can pull your money out whenever. But um, point is, I've just kind of put it in solid. I've put in some blue chip stuff. I've done some index funds, different stuff like that. But I don't know. Investing to me is kind of I can't believe that would drive me crazy. Because you're pretty much just gambling. That's really what it is. If you do that, so I'm just playing it smart, putting in money that I know will grow, and I know that it's huge companies that are very like hard to see them fail kind of thing, and they're pretty much guaranteed growers. So that's why I put them there in the first place. But yeah, I don't know. Investing's a interesting thing, and I'm sure it will go into a business school and being a finance major and all that, like I'm going to learn a lot more in depth about that, and I hope to, so I can
Yeah, I would
expand on that.
assume.
But yeah, all right. Well, I think it's about time we wrap this up. We're about at the hour 30 mark. But yeah, we had quite the
No,
morning.
and the time
Even
flew by on this episode.
yeah,
I mean,
a little bit.
I looked up and I looked down, and all of a sudden, bam, we're recording for 37 minutes, and I wouldn't have even thought we'd already been going for 90. And we were looking at this when we were editing episode 3. Uh, on our original podcast, we had only broken an hour one time out of like 7 episodes,
Yeah,
and that was hardly above an hour. The other ones were like 40, 50 minutes. And of course, we did do a lot more cutting and stuff. So the raw audio probably did eclipse an hour most of the time. But
yeah,
it just kind of amazes me that we weren't able to hold, an hour of content. And now like episode 3 that we just recorded the other day, we had to like stop ourselves because we went for 2 hours and then, you know, got a little long
yeah. It just
winded.
felt yeah, but yeah. I mean, I think it is time to wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, like you said, we're on pace here, setting ourselves up for some actual success here with the pod. We just keep doing this. I think this formula works where we kind of just do quick, simple edits and schedule them way in advance and help ourselves out by giving us some leeway that, if we have to take a break, we can for pretty much this whole month if we wanted to.
Yep.
But I don't advise that. But
No,
um,
we won't do that.
yeah, but the idea is that yeah, now but we can, and we have that safety net. Because I am quite busy this summer, and you are with work and now a car payment, so you really got to work. But
Yes.
yeah, but yeah, we have plenty of conversations. Just nothing too crazy, nothing too deep, but just a check in on life and a reflection of our recent changes with Instagram detox day 2, and by the time this comes out, I mean that'd be a couple weeks if we stick to it. So we'll see how our life changes going forward in terms of that. And it sounds silly because it's like deleting Instagram changed my life, but I mean seriously, like people's lives get changed by doom scrolling in a couple hours that you waste every day. Those things add up, and you could be doing something else. But
Absolutely.
yeah, excited to see how you uh, like Atomic Habits going forward when you actually, you know, get to reading the whole thing and finish it up and try to apply it to some of your life. But yeah, I think it's time to head out here. It is 11:47 a.m. We've had quite the morning, quite the podcast, very eventful, but we'll go ahead and let the listeners go on with their day. So thank you for listening to the East 15th, Mr. Worldwide E15. But we'll
Oh
see
boy.
you guys next time.